Welcome to the next lesson on Hitler's rise to power. Last lesson we looked at how Hitler used the Great Depression and the Wall Street crash of 1929 to get people to support him. Today we're going to be looking specifically at propaganda. So we're going to come across themes that we've already seen before, but we're going to focus mainly on different types of propaganda that Hitler used and the message that he was trying to put across. So, if you're looking at your booklet, I'd actually like you to start Hitler's Rise to Power booklet near the back. There's a Hitler's henchmen page. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages from the back. It's kind of got a timeline, and then you've got these two boxes here. So turn to that page for me, please. There's going to be 4 key men that Hitler trusted and gave a lot of power, and he was really close to, and therefore had a really big impact on German history. So 2 of them we're going to be looking at in this booklet, and then the other 2 are going to come up later in another booklet. So we're going to be focusing on the person on the right hand side where the arrow is pointing towards there. Interesting to see if any of you recognise this man from his image. He's got quite a scary looking face, so I always tend to remember that gentleman. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down his name, what his job was, and what impact he's going to have on that Germany topic. Okay, so I'm just going to put the information up on the next slide, and you can pause it and you can copy it down in your books. So this guy's name is Joseph Goebbels. Joseph Goebbels, if you hear the name Goebbels, you want to think about propaganda, which is what we're going to be looking at today. Okay, so under roles, can you put, he organised many campaigns for Hitler in the late 1920s, which is where we left things last lesson, and the early 1930s. So once Hitler's out of prison, after the Munich Putsch, and he realises that it's not violence that's going to get him elected, it's winning votes, he turns to Joseph Goebbels because he's going to have some experience, and he's offering to kind of say, I'm going to give you a certain image, and I'm going to be in charge of doing things like rallies and speeches and getting people to know you and support you, and therefore you're going to win the election fair and square by people voting for you. That works, and in 1933 Hitler does become the Chancellor, which is essentially the second most important job in Germany. And what he does is he makes Goebbels the official propaganda minister, which means he's in charge of all propaganda in Germany. So what impact is Goebbels going to have on German history? Well, he's responsible for the rise in support for the Nazi Party by this image of Hitler that he creates as the Führer, the ultimate leader, you know, perfect, strong in every way. He also helps to create the image of the pure German, the Aryan, blonde hair, blue eyes. And he's very important in creating this anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish view through his anti-Semitic propaganda. And this is going to brainwash people into thinking that it's okay for the Holocaust to happen. It's okay for Jews to be arrested and sent away to concentration camps and murdered in their millions. So he has a massive impact on German history. It's also important to note that he's Hitler's closest confidant and a very loyal friend. So Hitler would turn to him for a lot of advice, and I think that it was Goebbels that he had lots of children, and when Hitler kills himself, Goebbels kills himself and his children and his wife. That's how loyal he was to Hitler. So you can pause this if you haven't got all this down, and then press play when you're ready to continue. So when you're ready, turn back to the front, and you're looking at the page that says propaganda, and there's kind of like a circle where you can do a mind map, and it says different forms of propaganda. So once you're on that, what we're going to do is we're going to fill the mind map with different forms of propaganda. So if you look at that red box on the left, I've got a bullet point list of the different types of propaganda. So just put those around the mind map, but you want to leave some space underneath each one. I'd like you to write a short paragraph explaining which one you think is the most effective, but also underneath each one I'd like you to say why each one is effective in a method of propaganda. Think about things like what mood it's going to create. Can it reach a lot of people? How easy is it to make? Sorry, my phone. So for example, if you were to do the first one, which is rallies, so rallies are a form of propaganda, which is where you'd have kind of people marching through the streets, and you could have the essay on parade, people would have banners, people would give speeches, and there'd be a big crowd listening, it'd be very public. So write rallies, e.g. banners, speech, march and parades. And then underneath, write a paragraph saying why that's an effective form of propaganda. So you could say something like, by having, people marching on parade, it's very public and it can show how popular the Nazi Party are, because look at all these people that support me that are marching through the streets. And also because it's public and there are speeches, it gives a chance for a large crowd of people to hear the speeches and therefore know what Hitler is about. So I just write it underneath. Then move on to the next one, public holidays and festivals. Why is having a public holiday like Germany Day or something an effective form of propaganda? Why is having a festival to celebrate, I don't know, a key moment in German history where everybody drinks beer and has a dance and things like that? Why is that an effective form of propaganda? Do the same for radio. I put books and films together because they're essentially the same thing, and then do the same for newspapers. So pause here, do that, and then I'll go through the answers with you in a moment when you press play. Okay, so for public holidays, I put it's effective because it creates like a patriotic and a party mood, so it makes everybody in a good mood and therefore more likely to vote for you. Radio broadcasts, I've said it's easy for lots of people to hear Hitler's ideas and his speeches because you can just stick it on the radio and everybody would have one. Books and films, I said that was effective because it's quite subtle and it can brainwash people using entertainment. So you don't know that you're being told something because you're enjoying a piece of entertainment. So you could have a film that shows that the Germans should have won World War I, for example, and you kind of believe it because you're not really you're not being taught or lectured or something like that. And then newspapers, it's the same as the radio, easy to get your opinion to lots of people, but I've also put you can control what information people are reading and they're more likely to believe it because it's in a newspaper, so they think that it was true. So you could leave out bad things about the Nazi Party. Nazi Party murdered a communist in the street, but in the newspaper you could say that the communist got drunk and fell over and cracked his head. So it makes the communists look bad and doesn't make the Nazis look bad. So you can control people's information. So all of these are things that Joseph Goebbels and Hitler are using in order to put a certain image across of the Nazi Party and to get people to be convinced to vote for him. So probably the most famous, and I haven't got it on the list, so add it to the list. The most famous form of propaganda that I haven't actually got down there is posters. So add posters to the list. I've just done that now in my booklet. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to focus on analysing a propaganda poster. Okay, so if you turn to the next page in your booklet, you've got a page that looks like this. Now, obviously, if we were in school, I'd be giving you a printout of a poster and you'd be sticking it in that bit there. Obviously, that's not something that we can do during lockdown. So instead, I will give you your poster once we're all back together again as a happy family, and you can stick it in so that when you're revising next year in year 11 that you've got the poster that you were talking about in front of you. So in the meantime, where it says stick poster here, just write which poster you've chosen. I'm going to put 2 up on the next slide and then you can pause it and choose which one you want to do. And then can you pick the poster apart by answering the 6 questions, and there's space in each box for you. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the next slide. I'll leave it up for a bit. You answering questions, so you're going to pick out symbols and tell me their meaning. So you might see a swastika. So you would write in the box swastika equals. Tell me what swastika means. What colours have been used and why? Is there any writing? Don't worry if it's in German, I've translated it for you. And why? What's that writing been used for? What image does this create of Hitler or the Nazi Party? What type of person is this poster targeting, and how will this poster win Hitler's support? How is it going to get him elected? So I would pause the video, pick the poster, write which poster you've gone for in the stick poster here, answer the questions. Then I'm going to put the answers up on the next 2 slides, and obviously you can just choose which one is relevant to the poster that you chose. Okay. So we've got source A, which is a Nazi election poster from 1932. The writing on the top says work and bread. The poster shows different types of tools being handed out to workers. Don't worry about the Deutsche List 1. I think that means vote for Article 1 or something like that, and we don't need to know about that, so it's fine. And it's the same with source B. It says List 9, which is like Article 9, but I don't know what that is. Source B is a Nazi election poster for 1930. It reads National Socialist German Workers' Party, which is the NSDAP. There's a snake on the bottom and it's got a Star of David on its head. The Jewish snake is shown with words such as Treaty of Versailles, War, Guilt, Lie, Inflation and Unemployment written on the snake. Okay, so just write source A if you've gone for that one and source B if you've gone for that one, and pause it here and fill in the boxes. Okay. So I'm going to look at source A first. So if you didn't choose it, you can skip the video to source B, and vice versa. You can look at source A and then skip source B if it's not relevant to you. So just check everything you've done is right. You can give it a tick, and anything that you've missed out you can add. Okay. Right. So source A, the symbols I could see were tools. So you might have put like pick and shovel or something. Tools represents work, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a classic. It's the symbol of the Communist Party. Is the two weird tool things. They've probably got a proper name. So it's a common symbol of work, and I could see the symbol of the armband that the SA officer is wearing with a swastika, and that represents the Nazi Party. I mean, you could do hands reaching out is a symbol of need or poverty, but those two things are fine. The only colour I think that's worth pointing out is red, because there's a lot of it, and red, as we know, is now a symbol of workers. I've also put passion, possibly, because they're trying to say that they're really passionate about helping workers. The slogan is work and bread, which was a very famous slogan used by the Nazi Party. Very relevant in 1920s and 30s because many people are living in poverty and unemployment. So this is the two things that Hitler's promising. How does it make Hitler look? Poster shows the Nazi Party is helpful, the party that will give people the tools that they need to help them out of poverty, which is very attractive to people because it's not like a charity case. It's saying we're not going to throw money at you. We're going to give you the tools that you need to have a decent life, and you're going to work for yourself, and you're going to have pride in your work. So that's much more important to people than just throwing money at them. So the target audience is obviously workers. How is it going to get Hitler support? Workers make up most of the voters. So, you know, don't target the rich necessarily, go for the workers. They're also the group in Germany that are looking for a new leader, so more likely to vote for Hitler. Many people are out of work and will vote for Hitler as he's promising jobs. And then source B, the symbols are a snake, which I think is trying to represent that the Jews are sly and dangerous. Swastika is Nazi Party. Dagger, I've said, kind of represents power and strength. You could also put Star of David on the head, which represents Jewish faith. Again, red I can see, workers and passion, and white's a bit more prominent here, which was a symbol of nationalism. So it's kind of saying, like, you know, if you're a true German, then you hate Jews. By using words like Treaty of Versailles, War, Guilt, Lie, Inflation and Employment, it's kind of a list of all the things that Nazis blame the Jews for. So it's the Jews' fault for the Treaty of Versailles, it's the Jews' fault that they lost the war, it's the Jews' fault for hyperinflation, it's the Jews' fault that nobody's got a job. How does it make Hitler and the Nazi Party look? Poster shows that the Jews are the cause of many problems in Germany, and that the Nazis will be tough and get rid of the problem, because there's literally an SA soldier's dagger with a swastika on it stabbing the snake in the head. So it's kind of saying we are going to be tough and strong and get rid of this problem for you. Target audience, I would say, is all Germans. You could say anti-Semitic, but you know, back then a lot of people were subtly anti-Semitic because it was like a stereotype. So I would just say all Germans in general, because they all would have been annoyed with the Treaty of Versailles and hyperinflation and stuff like that. And how is it going to get Hitler support? By having a group of people to blame for Germany's problems, Jews, the Nazis can have a scapegoat and therefore create a sense of anger. And anger is very important. You can use anger to get people to do things they wouldn't normally do. Then they can tell people how they would deal with that group, and therefore it's really easy for Hitler to solve the problem. Let's target the Jews. There's not many of them. We could easily bully them. So great, let's blame them for everything. People kind of already don't like them. Easy. therefore I can get away with doing whatever I want. So there we go, 2 very famous propaganda posters. Okay, last task of this lesson is all about the image that Hitler wanted to put across. So let's go to 1930's election. That proved to be a big breakthrough for Hitler and the Nazi Party. They'd had an election 2 years before. Do you remember how I talked about there wasn't majority in the Reichstag and democracy was kind of losing? So they had to hold lots of elections constantly. It's a bit like when Theresa May and Boris Johnson kept fighting over Brexit and I need to have an election to get people to support me. It was the same for the leaders of the Reichstag. They kept saying, oh, we can't decide, so let's have another election and let's see if a party emerges as the ultimate party. So you can see the political party, whether they're left-wing, right-wing, or kind of in the middle. And then we've got September 1930 and May 1928. So the biggest party in the 1930s election wasn't the Nazi Party, it was the Social Democratic Party, which, to be honest, aren't that far. They're moderate, but Hitler says he was a socialist, so he would share things in common. But because they're not a crazy party, I think they're getting the most votes. They've got 143 seats. But then the second most important party is the Nazi Party, with who are right-wing, with 107. Now, if you look at May, so 2 years before, in 1928, the Nazi parties had a massive increase. They only had 12 seats, and now they've got 107. Who are the Nazi party's other greatest enemies? I would say would be the Communist Party. And look, they had more in 1928, but now they've got less than Hitler in 1930. So they're losing seats to the Nazi Party. The others aren't necessarily that important to us. So you kind of just got the SPD, the Nazi Party, and the KPD, the Communist Party. Now, Hitler hasn't won yet, but he is one of the most important parties, and he's definitely had the biggest increase in election winning seats. So let's have a look at why. We know that the types of propaganda that they're putting out there are having a positive effect. Let's be really specific with how Hitler was trying to come across using these different types of propaganda. So if you turn to the next page in your booklet, there is a table where you've got sources RSTUVW. You're going to read and look at each source and just tell me what you see or read. Then tell me how it's going to make Hitler appealing, what would make you want to vote for Hitler. And the other one is optional. You can analyse if you trust it or not. So you're getting to know propaganda. You know, you've been looking at it ever since year 8, and you're getting to know Hitler a little bit more. Do you trust a certain part of that source, or do you think actually that this is how Hitler really was and I believe what he's saying, or are you going, oh, that's very obviously one-sided propaganda? But that's optional, you don't have to do that one. So what are sources RSTUVW? If we were at school, I would be giving you the textbook, but we're not. So I've taken pictures of the sources and I've put them on the next 4 slides, I think, all together. So what I would do is I would look at the source, pause it, fill in the table, go to the next source, pause it, fill in the table, and so on and so on. I'm not going to go through the answers to this. I'll do that when I take in your booklets to mark, because I think the video will just go on for too long otherwise. And it's pretty much common sense, okay? Oh, should we do source R together maybe? I'll do source R with you so that you know how to do it, and then I'll leave it there, okay? Okay, so source R is a photograph, and in the attribution it says a battle between SA members and communist Red Front fighters in 1932. Translated, the sign at the top reads, "Up the revolution" and "Free the political prisoners." So, describe what you see or read. I can see the SA and communist parties having a fight. They are literally hitting each other with chairs. Now, where are they? If the signs are reading "Up the revolution," who would be saying things like, "Let's revolt against the government"? Even though I know the Nazis did it in the Munich Putsch, it was the communists that were famous for revolting. That's why they were rebels. So I would imagine this is a communist meeting that the SA have come to break up and cause trouble. So I can see the SA trying to break up a communist meeting, and they're all fighting one another. Explain how it makes Hitler appealing. I guess it only makes it appealing if you're afraid of communists because they are rebels and they're going to revolt. So I guess it could make the essay look like they're trying to stop a revolution and they're trying to control a dangerous political party. But it's a bit dodgy because it also makes the essay look violent. So how reliable is this? I think it's pretty reliable because it's a photograph and it's not biased. It's not saying, oh, the essayists are breaking up a fight and saving the day, and it's also not saying the essay just came in and started a fight for no reason. It's kind of just giving you the information and letting you use your background knowledge to work out if it's good or bad. So I'd say pretty reliable because it's non-biased. And then you'd move on and you're going to look at sources S, T, U, V and W and do the exact same thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go on to the next slide. I'll leave it up for a few seconds, but you'll pause it and then I'll move on to the next slide and so on, and I'm not going to do any more talking now, and then once that's done the video is over. Alright, so good luck filling in that. The next lesson is going to be about political events that happened that leads to Hitler being the Chancellor in 1933. Okay, so that will be the next lesson, and then that's the booklet pretty much done then. Okay, so only one more lesson left. So here's sources S and T. Sorry that source S isn't very easy to read, so pause and fill in these two. This is source U and V, so pause and fill in the table for these two. And finally, this is source W. End of video.